Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is the place where hope happens when you open your mind and heart to new beginnings. And it's a special privilege for me to have my friend, LeeAnn Starovasnik, with us today.
Thank you, Fran. It is my joy to be with you as well. And I'm excited to add more hope to your audience.
And you definitely will. And we will talk about that later, how I know you and why I've been following you for 7 years in the practice of Feldenkrais. So we have a special treat today. Everyone who's joining us today, thank you, because LeeAnn is going to show you what she does with some of her clients and show me too as well. So you've got a treat coming up.
All right. So we're going to experience a very short, about a 5-minute Feldenkrais awareness through movement lesson. We abbreviated ATM, and it was named before ATM machines. So um, we're doing awareness through movement. You can do it any place as long as you're not driving. But you have a chair to sit in. And as long as you're taking care of yourself and moving in a way that feels good for you, I'll start a recording. I'm going to do it with you. And I'll sit back so you can see what I'm doing. But this is an experiential method of learning. So we're going to start with an experience. So let's go.
Welcome to A is for Ankles. This lesson can help improve balance, ease your walking, and can help reduce back pain. So let's begin. Sit at the front edge of the chair and have your feet flat on the ground about hip width apart. And the reference move for this lesson is to determine which leg is easiest to lift to begin with, and we'll find out if the exploration changes that or not. So create your own theory as to which leg is going to be the simplest to lift, and you're just going to leave the foot parallel to the floor, but just pick it up an inch or two and put it back down. And find out what this feels like. Go ahead and lift that one leg that you think is going to be the simplest, the easiest, and then leave that and test your theory. Lift the other leg and find out if you were indeed correct. Don't worry if you get surprised. Sometimes it happens that the other leg is lighter than the first one. But in any case, we're going to work with the easiest leg. If something's going on with a hip or an ankle or a foot, I recommend using the leg that is the most comfortable. So with that leg, extend it so that the heel rests on the floor. Your long leg, and you're sitting towards the front edge of the chair. And with the ankle and the toes, I want you to write your name with your foot, leaving your heel on the ground. So you're going to create each letter with the foot and toes moving through the air. When you've completed your name, simply bend your knee, return your foot flat on the ground, and rest a moment. The rests are equally important to learning. So when you're ready, we'll come again with the same leg, extended long in the knee and the heel resting on the ground so that the weight of the leg is carried by the earth, not muscles. And you're going to write with the heel this time, but you're going to leave your leg straight. So no bending of your knee. You're going to draw the letters of your name on the ground as if you're writing your name in the sand. Your heel is the marker and writing each letter of your name. Now to do this, appreciate that the ankle's not moving so much, but other things around it have to move. The main bones of the ankle region are the talus in the foot and the two bones in the lower leg, the tibia and the fibula. The ankle is that junction of the leg and the foot. We'll move it more next time. So leave that and rest. And then come once again, the same leg long as it was before, the knee relatively straight, the heel on the ground, and the toes are in the air. So the writing instrument in this exploration are all 5 toes. Now you can move your ankle and your toes, but leave the heel on the ground, and the toes are doing the writing of each letter of your name. Now we've all practiced our names on those blue-lined papers for a long time. So this is non-habitual to do it with your foot, but it creates new neural pathways. That's what we're after. All right, so leave that and rest. So for the last exploration, you're going to keep your foot underneath your knee. You're going to imagine there's a construction paper that's perpendicular to the floor behind your lower leg. So it's beneath your thigh, behind your heel. Your heel is going to do the writing again by lifting up the heel. The ball of the foot's going to stay on the floor, and the heel is going to write on this piece of paper that's behind it. So the orientation is changed. And don't worry if you don't quite get it, you just play. That's the point. You're more about playing than performing in these lessons. You can scribble your name or you can write in calligraphy. Wherever you're at is okay. Good. Then leave that alone and rest. Now let's find out if this movement changed something of the ease in lifting this leg. Go ahead and lift it and lower it a few times and discover if something is different on this side. It might be lighter, it might be easier, or have a nicer quality. Notice what's true for you. And then let's find out if the other leg changed at all. Pick it up and put it down, and don't be surprised if it's actually lighter than it was to begin with, because it's a closed system. It may actually have improved without moving it. Now, of course, it might still feel different than the first leg that we moved. So feel free to press replay and teach the other leg what you learned on the first one with these ankle movements. This is A is for ankles.
So this is one of a series of lessons I created, and there's transcripts, and I'll offer your audience a discounted rate to get A through F. Ankles, A is for ankles through F is for foot. We can certainly do the other leg because you might feel a little out of balance because we focused on one at a time. So if you want, you can take a minute or two and just do whatever you remember of the lesson on the second leg. Doesn't have to be the same sequence that I taught it in. Playing is a teacher, and so we just invite you to play with that if you'd like. If you want to try one of them and spell Feldenkrais, I know it's a mouthful, so I'll help. I'm going to try with my heel on the floor. So I'm going to do F and E, L and D, E, and then N, Feldenkrais, K, R, A, I, S. Feldenkrais, it rhymes with paradise. So if you just did that second leg with Feldenkrais or something that you played with, great. Let's see if it feels any different. Go ahead, pick it up, put it down, and find out if you more quickly even improved your other leg and how it lifts. And so if you're going to take a walk or go for a run, you could lift one leg and then the other leg and just feel how, oh, well, if you've got lighter legs, it might be easier to get up and go and do whatever you're going to do next. I'll come forward and we can continue with doing our interview. That's a sample of an awareness through movement lesson.
So I found that after I had done the leg I think that's easiest for me, the other leg was even harder. It just felt so much more difficult until I spelled Feldenkrais, until I've spelled it. But, as a teacher, I think if I had known this technique for ankle, it would have been super helpful in the classroom just to give the kids a little bit of a rest from working under their desks. So yeah, thank you, LeeAnn. That was wonderful.
Yeah,
anyway, 25 years you've spent being a Feldenkrais educator, but you weren't always a Feldenkrais educator. And I think there were events in your life that probably brought you here into the field of healing, as it is for most people who choose a type of profession that you or I have. So what was your background? What was your journey?
Thanks for asking. Like you said, like many healers and teachers, it came from a sense of pain. I was working in corporate America and had chest pains that kept me up in the middle of the night, and they were scary. as you can imagine, but especially so because my father died young of a heart attack and I was only in my 30s. So something wasn't right here. Um, and I tried all sorts of different modalities. I followed my doctor's recommendations and went from practitioner to practitioner. And the good news is every single one of those modalities helped. The challenge for me was that it kept coming back. And so even though I got laid off from that corporate job and I took the package because I knew it was no good for my health to stay where I was, even though I loved working with the people, I was basically paid from the neck up to solve problems. And I didn't take care from the neck down of how my body moved and how I lived, how I took care of myself was lacking. So I left, and for the next year, I focused on taking care of my health. And I came across a practitioner who was in Victoria, BC. Arnie Lade is his name. Fantastic. And I saw him for a couple of sessions. And in the second session, he said, I think I can help you with your pain. And I said, yeah, I can tell. This is great. He had many tricks up his sleeve that he brought to the table. And he said, but if you want it to not come back again, I'm like, okay, all ears. I want it to not come back again. Anything. What do I do? This is, keeping me up in the middle of the night. So he says, you need to learn to move differently. Like, oh, how do you do that? I hadn't heard those words put together in that way, I don't think, all my life. You need to learn to move differently. So then he hands me the business card of his trainer, because even though he had all these skills, he was spending 4 years to become a certified Feldenkrais practitioner. And his trainer happened to be in Seattle, where I live.
Mm.
So the good news is I could, more easily get support and find out what this Feldenkrais method was all about. And within 6 months, I was in the training. And since after the first 6 or 7 hands-on sessions with Jeff Heller, who is the trainer, I never had those pains again. So I must have learned to move differently. Something changed in my neuromuscular system to not have it happen. And even though I'd seen lots of doctors and my heart was good, that was relief from the medical profession to know my heart was okay. It turns out Jeff figured out that my collarbone was rubbing on my sternum, and that's what was causing that pain in the middle of the night that was so significant to wake me up. And so how I held myself, how I used my shoulders, my open-heartedness, held my head up high, made a difference on how I felt and how I slept and how I walked through the world. And that pain is no longer there. So that's how I changed paths from in corporate America with technology improvements and business process improvements. I was a master black belt in Six Sigma for GE, which is something of a systems improvement. But this Feldenkrais is also a systems improvement methodology. It's just an embodied one. So I've been doing system process improvement since the get-go, and now I get to do it in an embodied way and help others to find their way home to their movement and comfort in their movement.
I like how you say that, find your way home, because truly the body does know what to do, but we think that it's not, right? We think that for whatever reason, there's something wrong with and you can just fill in the blank because there's something wrong with it. There was something wrong with your heart. There was something wrong with whatever was going on with you, that the practitioner that found it in Seattle knew that. Were you carrying your shoulders in like this?
Exactly, Fran. So part of my story is also that I am a broad-shouldered woman with a short neck. And as early as I can remember, especially in junior high, I thought that wasn't very feminine looking. And so I rounded my shoulders, and I always carried a little extra weight, and I wanted to cover it up. So I kind of rounded, and also very protective of myself. It's a very protective posture. And so this was a habit that was decades in the making. It wasn't just stressful work. It wasn't just flying on an airplane with a laptop. It was a habit that my body had gotten into and stayed in for a long time. And it was unconscious. So we're not trying to cause ourselves these pains, but I wasn't aware of what I was doing. So I couldn't do something else. So the other thing that caused some of that was I did have a fall as an infant. I had a traumatic brain injury and fell on my head. Good thing I'm hard-headed. And they didn't think I was going to make it. And they did a lot of comparison of me and my movement and my development with my siblings and then with my classmates, because in those days they didn't have other ways of testing to see if how the brain was working. But it turns out that they were wrong. I did make it. And I think I'm pretty clear-headed most of the time.
I
And
wonder, LeeAnn, like as you say, because you used right, from collarbone, I guess, up
right,
in corporate America, and you left your body to go into your head. I wonder if it was your mind's way of saying, "Oh yeah, I'll show you." Right? I'm gonna like get as high as I can up in corporate
mhm.
to the detriment of the rest of your body.
You know, I don't think I was actually in my body to feel that it was that I was wearing it down and my immune system was, getting weakened. I think I really was living in my head. I just don't think I was very embodied. That fall was really traumatic, but they were really attending to, yeah, how my thinking was. I, my whole body landed on the floor, so it probably didn't feel very good. So I kind of think I exited stage left fairly shortly after that infant
Yeah,
fall. Um,
yeah.
so
Wow.
yeah, I don't think I was really at home in my skin for
So
most of my life
when
until I studied this method.
when you say at home in my skin, what does that mean to be at home in your skin?
That's a good question. Well, we know we have a lot of things vying for our attention right now. We have social media, we have news, we have friends and family and obligations and work and community and all these things, volunteers, all our exercise, all these things. And you can do them from the inside out with some awareness, or you can kind of do them without that. And I think we've all done things on automatic pilot, right? Somehow we got home from our workplace that we always drive a certain way, but we weren't really sure what we saw on the drive home, but we got home safely. That's not really at home in your skin in that moment, I think. My experience is, oh, okay, if I'm at home, I'm going to be noticing if I'm more of what's going on around me. I'm going to be participating more fully in that moment of my hands on the steering wheel. I'm seeing the colors. I'm seeing the people walking on the sidewalk. I'm more present. So it's a level of mindfulness um, that I think comes with my definition of being at home versus, being elsewhere.
Well, and I think about Moshe Feldenkrais, who actually began the program. He
Mhm,
started it in the 1940s, was it?
yes.
And so what was his premise of
Mm.
developing the Feldenkrais way of moving within the body as a mindful awareness of body movement?
Good question. Well, he had a lot of things going on. He was a martial artist and an avid soccer player and had an injury to each knee that actually, when it got to this point that before he started the method, he couldn't walk. And, prior to that, been really able bodied and, did a lot of things. And so he was motivated to figure out, well, how am I going to walk again? And the surgeons at the time, this is a long time ago, they didn't have what we have now for surgeries on knees. And they said, well, you need surgery on your knees, Dr. Feldenkrais. And he said, well, what are my chances of walking again after you cut them? And they said 50-50. And he said, no way, not good enough odds. I'm a scientist. I don't even start an experiment unless I think 80 to 90% chance I'm going to be right. Why would I waste my time? So instead of doing the surgery, he worked at, he was trying to find his own way. His wife was a pediatrician, and he got to watch children move at as they're waiting in the waiting room to see his wife. And he realized that these children moved not just for an exercise standpoint, but because they wanted something. They wanted that shiny object. They wanted that toy over there. And he watched how they moved. And if they got tired on the way, they stopped. They weren't like, oh, I got to get that toy, right? They had a different energy, a different exploration, a different quality of movement, and didn't have what we have in us is this idea that we have to do it right the first time. So they explored, they experimented, they found their way. If they got distracted because something was more interesting on the way to that toy, who cares? But it wasn't a goal orientation. It was play. It was having a good day. So he took that quality of attention and awareness, applied it with what he knew. He was also a mechanical engineer and a physicist, and applied it to the body. Well, here's the mechanics. We've got the feet, the ankles below the knees, and the lower legs. What can we do to help shore them up? What about all the weight and the movement above the knee? If things are just right, perhaps, it'd be easier. And he learned from his experiences. Some days the right knee hurt, some days the left knee hurts. Unfortunately, some days both of them hurt. But there were also times when neither one of them hurt. And he started to make this self-awareness study of, what the heck am I doing when it works well? Can I practice that? Can I repeat that? How do I create that more naturally? And then he went about teaching all around the world for the next, 40 years or so, and never had the knee surgery. So he figured out a method based on his own personal need to get up and live a life more actively than what they could promise from surgery at the time.
Yeah, it's a great story. When I think about children, it is absolutely what you just said. They begin their movement because they're reaching for a rattle or they're reaching for whatever it is that they want. And then they get up on their knees and they begin to crawl towards it. And then they pull themselves up, and such a gradual thing of learning to move those muscles and play. When they're having play, when they get to the school age or whatever, even a 4-year-old can run like crazy. They
Mhm.
run because they love to run. They run because, okay, it's sometimes because mom says to run or dad, but most often it's for the love of that movement that they love so much. Monkey bars, climbing on the swings, all of
Mhm.
that play equipment that we provide for
Mhm.
kids, right? Because we know that it
Mhm.
strengthens their body and all of the rest of that. And yet we go to the gym and we do 500 sit-ups. And did we even like five? Right? So
Yeah.
somewhere there's a disconnect where we began to believe no pain, no gain. And yet in Feldenkrais, you have a different saying.
Yes. No pain, more brain. Feldenkrais was also applying this idea that is now, coming to be normalized and understood, that the brain has a sense of plasticity, that it can keep learning no matter the age or condition. And so through the experiences that are carefully created, there's a learning opportunity, there's a learning environment around every class and every private session that we do. And it's for the brain to retain what we do. So we really are empowering our students to find something that's repeatable for them, and they don't become dependent on a practitioner, because we learn more from that felt sense. Um, and so the New York Times author and neurologist, Dr. Norman Deutsch, referred to Feldenkrais as the first neuroplastician. So it wasn't known at the time what he was doing, which is unfortunate, but now it's appreciated and acknowledged that he was one of the first to be thinking and applying this approach through movement to actually help us use more brain and less pain and still get our jobs done. So it's more efficient and effective. And so from a process improvement standpoint, where I started in my work world, I'm like, this is great.
That's the thing. Is it my dream to be able to go work out in the gym? No, my dream is to be able to run faster, and be stronger and keep my bones healthy and to be able to live a long life, being able to be as mobile as humanly possible right into my 80s and 90s and even hundreds.
Um, Well, I had worked with a person who was 106, was my oldest client, and her daughter, who was also up there in age, was her caregiver, and said that the reason that her mother could still get herself in and out of her own wheelchair was because of our time together, our lessons that we did for her to feel her own sense of her weight and moving her weight and being able to use herself in a way that was more sustainable than what she knew before she came to class.
You teach a variety of ages and a variety
Yes.
of skill levels and a variety of athletes because
Right.
the first time I took a series of courses from you, I can't remember how many there were, maybe four or something, right, LeeAnn? It was to get prepared for a half marathon that I was running. And I mean, I see chiropractor and physio and massage and all of that stuff that you're supposed to do was barely touching the surface, even though I was dedicated. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to try Feldenkrais. And so I did, and it was online. And immediately I could feel the difference. It was like a body meditation
Mhm.
where just simple, mindful movement helped me to be able to run a really good time in that half marathon. So I thank you for that, LeeAnn.
Oh, my pleasure. It's why I do it, is because some people think their lot in their life, something happened and that's it. That's the best they can do. And they're getting older and society says it's downhill. We even say that term, it's downhill from here. No, not necessarily. There's some things we can do. It does take some time and effort and attention, but there's ways of improving. And that's where I want to give people hope. And when Feldenkrais had this experience, is that even though some days he had both knees hurting, there were some days they didn't hurt. Then that means there's hope that it's not a permanent condition. It's a matter of recreating that which is pain free or less painful. And it takes some attention, but it's possible, and that's what I'm here to help with for my clients.
Right. The mind is a wonderful thing if we use it
Hmm.
in a positive way, because
Absolutely.
Moshe Feldenkrais, he could have accepted what the doctors said. And it's 50-50. You're going to either walk again with this or you won't walk again with this. And he could have accepted that he was not going to walk again, but instead he chose to do something different. He chose to have hope in something different than the medical system at the time offered.
Right.
So your training in Feldenkrais, what type of training did you have? And why was it necessary to have such an extensive amount of training?
That's a good question. Um, so to be certified as a Feldenkrais practitioner, um, it's the trainings are around 800 hours of training over 3 to 4 years, because we have to help ourselves before we can help someone else. And there's a lot to learn and experience and embody, and it takes time to do that. So between intensive sessions, we would also do our own self-study. We would go to classes and workshops and have hands-on lessons, which are called functional integrations, which might be the function of walking or running or dancing, whatever function you do during the day, you can improve either in a classroom or in a private session. And it to be maintain our certification, we require continuing education. There's so much new that we're still learning, and we can learn from each other and from our clients. And I do. I understand now what Moshe once said to a room of 200 people. He said, "I'm going to be the last teacher you ever had." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm going to learn more from you than you'll learn from me." What? Because every single one of us has walked a different path in life. And so it's impossible for me to know exactly what other people have walked. But when I work with them privately, I get a sense of, and I can learn from their experiences for myself as well. And what he's wanting to teach is that we're all capable and and create that environment for learning from within that you can apply to anything. And I also want to say a couple things. I'm not against strength training. I love my strength trainer, my personal trainer, because it's a both and. It's great to do things mindfully, but I also need to have some strength. And however you like to do that, some people love to go to the gym and lift weights. Some people don't. So it's like, how do you find that match of how you move and what you're going to do that is sustainable? And then you do it with a Feldenkrais approach, this awareness through your movements of whatever you're doing. You'll probably be safer and be able to get more effective use of yourself. So if you are going to do some sit-ups or lift some weights, let's do it in a safe way that is actually gaining the advantage that you really want. So I want to talk about that because not everybody wants to go to the gym. I totally get that. And this I see is really complementary.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know you had a 106-year-old, but what are some other success stories you can tell us about clients that you've had,
Yeah.
and their stories of where they started and where you brought them to?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I have some fun success stories. I worked with a woman who is a nurse, and she had an unfortunate horse riding accident that hurt her back and hip significantly. And she was really dedicated to her patients. She wanted to get back to work as soon as she possibly could. And she chose the Feldenkrais approach because she found it would be faster for her than this traditional. Now, that's not going to promise that to anybody, but that was her choice. So we worked together intensely. We did a couple sessions a week, and she came to class. And she had a date in mind that she wanted to go back to work. She also had an intention of working as if she had never had this fall happen in her life, in her body. She just wanted it to be kind of erased. And by the time she wanted to go back to work, she went back to work. And some weeks after coming back to work, she saw one of her return patients because she, in a title work, that she would see the same people over and over again. And this fellow said, "Hey, where were you?" And she's like, "Oh, I had this accident. I had to recover." And he's like, "Oh, you're moving like nothing ever happened." And so someone else could tell her quality of movement was back to where it was. And she was thrilled because during our time together, she went from a walker to a cane to no mobility aids, and went back to work as if nothing had happened. So that's one of my favorite stories. And
Incredible, especially a fall from a horse, right?
yeah.
When I saw you in person, LeeAnn, was last fall, I do believe it was, and I was about to run a half marathon in Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really aware of how heavy my legs had been feeling. I had had an injury a while back where I broke my kneecap. I had not been feeling as confident, and my legs just felt heavier. And so I saw you in Seattle in person in your studio, and we went through some exercises. But as you said, with your friend who had fallen off the horse, you and I and our other friend who was also running the half marathon set an intention for ourselves of how we wanted to feel during that marathon. So can you tell us a little bit about why it's important to set an intention?
It's a great question. Now, this is something I pulled from other modalities, and it's not necessarily out of the Feldenkrais approach, but I have a master's in the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and I also had studies in spiritual coaching. And we found over time that when people set that intention, they have a better chance of getting there. And so I'm like, so for me, when I work with my clients, a classroom or a private session, I ask, "Hey, what's in the room? What would you like to embody?" And people often can start with, "Oh, I have a pain in my neck. Oh, my back is bugging me." And I'm like, "Okay, that's what you don't want. What do you want? What would it feel like if that pain was relieved or, at least lessened? What would you be able to do? Oh, wow, I'd be able to walk further after work or carry my child up and down the stairs more comfortably. Oh, well, that's what you want to do. Okay." Then we have a more of a gestalt as well. We have an image of this person walking up and down the stairs, carrying their child perhaps, or getting in and out of the bathtub with her. And one of my clients is a gardener, master gardener. She's like, "I want to be able to get in and out of my bathtub comfortably and safely." And she lives alone. I'm like, okay, we can work with that. There was an idea that we went towards, same as the child saying, "I want to go to that sparkly toy," or "I'm going towards mom's voice." I have a reason to go there, not just, "Oh, I should do it." but I want to. So that sets that openness up and that desire up. And we find out whatever gets in the way of that. So as a former programmer, it's like, those are the bugs. There's something that's stopping that movement, or causing that discomfort. And let's figure out what's there, and why is it there. It's usually there for a really good reason. At some point it served them and it may no
Well,
longer be useful.
when you
So we
say
get to play with that.
yeah, when you say gestalt, I
Mm,
automatically think of a pattern or a copier, right?
mhm,
So we all know, like in my body, I know what it feels like to run free. I know what it
mhm,
feels
mhm,
like to run
mhm.
in
Yeah.
comfort and in lightness and in embodying a joy and a playfulness. I know what that feels like. It's in here.
Mhm,
It's in my mind. It's my body remembers that. And when I tell my body, this is the way I'm going to run today. And that's what we actually did, LeeAnn. Both of my friend and I, we both continued to repeat the words of the intention. And we had a great run. We both did.
mm,
And so there's so much to be said about that whole mind, body, emotion, and spirituality that's untapped in
mhm.
creating a holistic health within us. So I thank you for that as well.
Certainly. And so the Feldenkrais method is of somatic education. So the whole umbrella name, the Feldenkrais method of somatic education, soma being the whole. We're working with the whole being because you can't separate them. The feeling, sensing, moving, thinking all happens at the same time. And the beauty is if you change one part of it, it could change the whole, right? It doesn't have to be, you don't even have to understand, why did my leg lift earlier lighter? Hmm. If you're curious, there's more to discover. But it doesn't really matter. You feel better, go on with your day, right? And those that are curious become, more
Yeah.
practicing. And all of my students who come to classes weekly are practitioners in their own right. They don't do it as a profession, but they're practicing the Feldenkrais method. They're practicing awareness through movement. Oftentimes, after they've been in classes for a while, they find parts of the lessons they really like that really does something good for them. And they do something in the morning, right when they get up out of bed, or even in bed, or before they go to sleep at night.
So, LeeAnn, we started out with an A is for ankles. And so, what can you tell us about the A to F program that you have and
Oh,
anything else that you're offering right now?
certainly. So I've got A through F recorded, and it has transcripts and audio recordings and handouts. Um, and so those are available, and I'll offer a special price for all of your audience, to keep it at $25. So you'll have those. They're all like 5 to 7 minutes, so they're short. They're done seated in a chair. We're going to sit anyway. Might as well have some ways of moving that might make you, more comfortable, more aware, and sit more comfortably. So that's A through F. I'm working on the rest of the alphabet. Um, and the next set of workshops and series that I'm doing are both online. And for those in the North Seattle area, some can come into my office. We're going to focus on everyday ease in standing and taking a stand for ourselves. It feels like a really important time on the planet to stand up for ourselves and to start from within. So the first series will start in March. It'll be from a chair to standing. We'll work on that function of getting up and down from a chair. And if you think about how many times you do that a day, you'll get some real benefits for improving it even a little bit. It'll go a long way, not just for today, but tomorrow, next year, decades from now. So we'll do sitting to standing. And then in April, we'll do from the floor to standing. I have a lot of students. I often work with people over 40 or 50, and they at some point have said they've stopped getting to the floor. At one point, I asked, well, how often? Because most of my previous classes before COVID were mostly done on the floor, and I still teach lessons on the floor. But they said, oh, just for your class once a week. I'm like, that's not enough.
Wow.
And they expressed concerns about falling and living alone and falling and not being able to get up. And I'm like, well, okay, I want to work on going from the floor to standing. And build that, what one of the trainers called biological optimism, from the inside out, to say, I can do this. I can get myself up and down to the floor easily, more consistently, with whatever happened. They might have some bionic parts, a shoulder, a knee, a hip, something that's new and improved, but they need to find a way to work with it and still be able to get their body up and down from the ground. So that's starting in April. Throughout 2025, I'll be offering these series of classes and private sessions. But for new people, if you're not sure, because it's still new to many people, the Feldenkrais method, and I'm new to your audience and many people, I do a free 15-minute consultation on Zoom or on the phone to get any questions answered that you have and find out if we're a good fit. And if what I have doesn't seem to suit what your needs are, I'll let you know. And I have a lot of referrals for other people too, that I can share as needed. And then when people are curious to try a hands-on session or a private session, could be on Zoom as well across the world, I do a half off to make sure that, again, that we're a good fit and that I really know more about what's going on, and we try some things. And if it's a fit and it's working well, then I offer discounts for a series of private sessions, because it takes time to learn things. As a teacher, you have lesson plans, not just for one day on a topic, but for multiple days, because we need some repetition, we need some variation, we need to look at a subject from different sides. And that's what happens over time in classes and private sessions. So I really encourage people to do more than one, but also it's like, oh, just dip your toe in and see if it's a good
Well,
fit for you.
and they can dip their toe in and write Feldenkrais, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not sure about attending a class on Zoom, or if you're in the Seattle area in person, take the A to F classes, and you'll see, even if you are just taking it for the meditative part of it, because it's really like when I was writing my name, I was closing my eyes. I was super aware of what my ankle, my toe, and then in the other part of the exercise, when you had us imagine the construction paper underneath, I was really aware of what part of my foot was actually working while the rest of it stood still. So it's very meditative in itself. So I really enjoyed that. So even myself, I think I'll take the ADF just to get I never work on my ankles. Like who does, right? I mean, ankles are covered by socks usually. And so nobody's going to see if, how well your ankles are moving. But my goodness, seriously, they're holding up your whole body, really.
Right. They're key to your balance. And I also have a series of classes called Balance in Action, because you're not balancing to stand still. You're not walking a tightrope, right? So you're balancing to do something, and you're shifting your weight as you're actively moving in dynamic actions. So yeah, and the ankles are a big part of that. So I have helped a lot of people improve their balance as they get concerned about that for any reason, you know. And so for the discount, what I'm thinking is I'll just put up a special code on my website that says Hopenning. And for that, you'll get the discounted rate for the ABCs of Everyday Ease. And my website, so is Next Step Consulting Inc. So it's just one step at a time. That's all we can learn, really. So Next Step Consulting, and then INC for incorporated.com is my website. And under scheduling, you'll see you can schedule a time with me, schedule and register for a class, or purchase a package like the ABCs. That's all under scheduling. And then just use the code Hopenning, and you'll get the discounted rate.
Capital H or small h?
Either way.
Oh, good. And I'll also put that in the show notes as well. So thank you, LeeAnn. And what is your last message of hope for our viewers and listeners today?
So I'd like to leave everybody with a quote from Moshe Feldenkrais. And he said that movement is life. You change the quality of the movement, and you change the quality of your life. And I'm here to give hope and help you improve the quality of your life, no matter what movement you're able to do or would like to do.
Lovely. Awesome. Thank you so much, LeeAnn,
Thank you, Fran.
for joining us and offering your wisdom and doing a little bit of exercise with us, which did not feel like exercise at all. And of course, you're not supposed to be driving when you do it, but if you have a passenger, your passenger
There you go.
definitely could be doing this. And and I will be signing up for your course. Absolutely. I enjoyed it so much. And if you enjoyed listening to us today, please subscribe. It will help me. It will help LeeAnn as well to get the message of hope out to the world, that there are different things out there that we can try when we open our minds and our hearts to it. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Fran.
This podcast and inspired healing hypnotherapy do not provide medical advice. The information included here is not limited to text, graphics, images, or other material contained, and are for informational purposes only. No material in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this site.